Hello, and welcome to this session, which is focusing on Google Vault. As you may be aware, my name is Sean Power, and I'm one of the business development managers here at Refractive. We are a Google Cloud partner based in the UK, and we also run and maintain the G Suite Tips website, which you may have visited. And that's, in fact, how many of you have heard about this session today. So welcome to you all. We've got a fairly brief agenda for this session. It will last around 30 minutes. What we're trying to do is spend most of that time looking at a demonstration of Google Vault, because that'll help bring things together and help you understand what Vault can do. And we'll look at the product, and we'll also have an exploration of the features that you can bring to your organization and how you can make use of them. The overall theme for the day is really intended to give you an overview of what Google Vault is and try to answer the question as to why you should consider it for your organization, i.e. what benefits it will bring to your operation. We should have time for questions at the end of the session today. So on the YouTube page, there is a section in the top right-hand corner for questions. So just pop your question in there. And if we've got time at the end of the session, then we'll go through those questions and try to answer anything that we can. If not, we will get to them after the session. So do feel free to ask any questions that you want to. Okay, so the basic question is, what is Google Vault? Essentially, there are three main elements to Google Vault, and each of these elements is connected with the preservation of your valuable corporate G Suite data, effectively. The archive function automatically captures email messages, Drive documents, on-the-record chats, etc., and securely manages them in place with no need to duplicate your data in multiple locations. Vault also allows you to define retention policies for all types of G Suite data to ensure your business critical data is preserved and also is properly managed in a manner which is appropriate to your information security policies. So we'll see this as we go through the demonstration. And then finally, eDiscovery essentially is just an in-detail search of your information to look for, identify and preserve and collect data based on details about the information. So either its content, who sent it, who owns it, and any other metadata about those assets. So this is what Vault effectively does. It manages all three of these processes in managing and maintaining your corporate data. There are a number of key features in Vault which help you too in this process of archiving, retaining, and discovering your data. And these include comprehensive security features, which help to maintain the integrity of your G Suite data. For example, one of these, which you can see on the screen, one of these features is an audit trail. And this records all Vault activities that are undertaken, including all searches, all archives, all export of data, etc. And this ensures that all actions are visible to privileged members of the team. And it also helps prevent unwarranted investigations occurring by individuals with administration rights. And we'll look at some of this as we go through the demonstration. As you would imagine, although I'm not a qualified lawyer, it can be assumed that Vault does have all the relevant badges necessary for an application of this nature. It is well worth checking and verifying with your internal security audit team, or doing some research if you don't have such a team within the organization. Of particular note is the bottom one in this list, the ISO 27001 certification. So this certifies the whole Vault process from a data security and data management perspective, and ensures that data is handled effectively, securely, and within appropriate processes as outlined by the 27001 certificate. Okay, so that's a brief background to what Vault is and what it can do. As I said, most of the time will be spent on the demonstration, and we'll try and get to show you some interesting stuff now, just to see Vault in action and see how that works, etc. We will come back to the presentation because we'll talk about kind of the use cases and the benefits that it can bring to you. But just for now, I'm just going to exit the presentation. And I'm going to start actually in the G Suite admin console. So for those of you who are administrators of your G Suite environment, you'll be used to this this space here. This is how essentially you control what happens with your G Suite users and with your data, etc. The thing which I'm most particularly interested in is the admin roles section here. And this is where I can define what functions are available to privileged administrators of my G Suite environment, particularly relating to Vault. So I'll click on the admin roles, and that opens up into this page. See, there are some system roles which are already created, and there are also some user created roles here. So we as administrators can create specific roles depending on what we're trying to achieve within our administration rights. What I actually want to do is create a new role, and I'll show you some of the things that we can do with Vault. So this one is going to be, let's just say it's a Vault audit, and I can enter a description if I want to. But just in this case, I'll just click create. And these are all the roles that I can have for all the various G Suite services. Now, in this case, what I'm interested in is Google Vault. And I can come down here, expand the list of services open to Google Vault if things are working in my favor. I did ask for help from the demonstration gods. There we go. So here we are. These are the things that I can assign to this particular role that I'm creating at the moment. And for instance, what I could say is actually this particular role, you can't do anything, including you can't do search, you can't export any data, you can't manage the retention policies, but what you can do is manage audits. And this is quite a good role for you to set up if you're using Vault, because it means that the user can come into here and they can understand what audits and what searches and what exports have been undertaken by other users. So it's kind of an overseer role. So once I've selected one or more of these options in Google Vault, then what I can do, I can just come over here and click Save. And you'll notice that that new role which I've created here called Vault Audit now appears within this section here. And I can come over here to the admins and I can start to assign some administrators to this role simply by searching for the name and choosing them from this particular list. So I can assign myself, this is just a demonstration environment, by the way. I can assign myself to a role, and that gives me the opportunity to be able to perform whatever functions are available within this role. In this case, just audit only. I can't do anything else. So this is kind of a one-time setup process for your Vault environment. It allows you to dictate who can do what within your environment, what administrators can and can't do effectively. But probably the most important thing after this, once you've set up the security privileges for your administrators, is actually using Vault for its purposes of discovering, archiving, and retaining data. And I'll come over here. I've got this tab open here at the moment. This is Vault itself. You see, it's just accessed. If you've got access at the moment, just go to ediscovery.google.com and you'll get access to this particular site. And there's a number of things that I can do in here. I can set my retention policies, I can create matters, and I can also run reports to see what's happening within my Vault environment. In this particular case, I'll run through and I'll go to the retention policy first. And this essentially dictates what the standard retention time frame is for each of these services, i.e. how long are my emails retained, how long are my Drive documents retained, and this is across the organization for all users and all organizational units within my domain. So just to give you an example, If I click on mail here, I've got the option here of setting a default retention rule for mail, which can come up here. And again, I've got the choice of either saying, well, actually, mail is very important to us. We never want to delete anything. We always want to retain it within Vault, so I can retain it indefinitely. Or I can say, well, actually, what I want to do is just keep everything for a year. And after a year, then I've got a choice of what happens. I can either just delete the messages which have already been deleted by my users. So I'm a user and I delete messages. After a year, they'll be expunged and deleted from Vault as well. Or what I can actually say is, well, whether the user has deleted them or not, I want to delete them anyway from my domain. So you've got the choice here of how strict you are in terms of your deletion policies. This is quite severe, as you can imagine. And you probably want to extend this date over a year, but essentially you could say, in 10 years' time, any email messages that I have, let's just delete them, get them out of the system. We no longer need them. There are certain industries which we'll come to later, which have certain retention policies for information which are already dictated. Typically 7 years for financial services, for instance. And so that's a good way to say that all this information is retained for that period of time. But after that, actually, let's just get it out of our environment. Let's get rid of that information. So I can decide what I want to do, and this is probably not an administration role. This is an information security role. So someone will set the policies, but anybody who's managing and administrating Vault will come in here to set the policies in action effectively, but someone else will decide those policies. And then if I want to, I can click save, and then that's committed for this particular service. I'll click cancel in this case, and again I can do the same thing for Drive documents, group information, chat and meet, etc. So I've got flexibility in terms of the retention period for each type of service that I have within G Suite. So once I've said that, what I actually want to do now is show you how we use Vault to create what we call matters. And matters, you can imagine that the terminology that we're using here within Vault is leaning towards the legal perspective. So a matter is a case. It's an investigation. I've got an issue that I want to investigate, and I'm going to create a matter related to that incident. So if I come up here and I'll just click on matters, I'll see a list of some matters which have been created previously. These are my live ones. I can actually show anything which has been closed or has actually been trashed, so it's no longer in use. But what I'll do, I'll create a new one from start, just so we've got an idea of what we're doing here. So click on create, and this is going to be, let's say I'm investigating myself, which is probably not relevant, but it gives us an idea. And I'll choose a reference just so I can understand what this matter is about. I can also put a description in here if I want, so I can anyone else who stumbles across this or has got access to this matter can actually understand why we've been doing this investigation. So I put the details in and I just click create new matter, and then once that is saved, we see that we're in the matter itself, and we can manage it here. Now, once I've created a matter, then I've got a number of things that I can do to add data and basically manage this matter. I can create a number of holds, which is basically saying any emails within this hold, emails or documents, they won't be deleted even if we hit the retention period. So I'm basically saying I want to retain this forever. I can also perform some searches. I can find information related to this particular matter. And then once I've found the information that I'm interested in via the search, I can then go through an export process to take that data out of Vault and then manage it effectively. In this particular case, what I want to do, I'll do a search because that kind of gives you an idea of all the functions available. So I'll click on search, and I've got a number of options to me. So I can say, well, what am I searching? These are the various types of G Suite services. I'm going to click on a mail because I want it to be a mail. I've got a choice of what data. So am I searching a previous hold that is already in place? Or am I saying anything that's not being processed at the moment? So it's not in a hold, it's not within my Vault matter, it just exists within my G Suite environment. In this case, again, I want as much data in here as possible, so I'll click on all data. And again, what accounts do I need? Do I want to look for a specific user account? Am I looking in a particular organizational unit? Or in this case, I want to say all accounts, which is useful to me. So I've got the opportunity to say exactly what data I want in here. In this case, I'll actually change this. I'll just change it to specific accounts, and following the principle, I will do a search on myself, which is, as I said, probably not what most people would do. So that's the account that I want. That is fairly easy. I can set my dates. So I can say, well, show me anything that goes back to a particular period of time, and either to and from. In this case, I'll leave it blank, again, because I want as much information as possible. If you work in multiple time zones, then I've got the opportunity to change the time zone, which can be important if I'm looking for a particular messages at a particular time. And then I can put my terms in here. So what am I interested in? Am I interested in all messages from Sean? Or am I interested in specific messages? Well, let's say it's commercially sensitive. I'm going to check something like pricing. Now I've got a number of options here. I can either just do the search, I can do a count on the search, or can say whatever it is, I'm just going to export it. But probably most likely you'll start with a count. So what this does, it looks through my criteria, and it's very useful because it's got an error. It will look through my, let me just refresh the page. It will look through the criteria that I've set and actually find the information that I want, because I want to find out how many messages there are related in here already. So let me just quickly do this again. We've got net, specific accounts. I want all data and everything else the same, and I'll just do pricing. There we go, and I'll just do accounts now. There we go. So count results, say I've got 4 messages and I've got 1 match because I'm only looking for a specific account, which is fine. So again, a number of things I can do. I can either go straight into my search, or I can go straight into the export to see what these messages are. So in this particular case, let me do a search. So what this does, I've only got 4 messages in here, but what this actually allows me to do is say that these are the messages, and I can click on these and I can see which is relevant. Now I could decide that actually this particular message here isn't relevant, and there may be a number of those messages. So I've got the ability to change my search criteria. So if I click back, you see where I've got pricing in here, I can do what we call Boolean searching. So I've got inclusive minus quotes, etc. So this time I'm going to do pricing minus Monday, do the count again. And now I've got 3 messages because it's excluded the one that had Monday included in there. And I can do my search just to show you that. And that's fine. So let's say I've found all the information that I'm interested in. I've got the messages, I've got my documents, everything is as expected. What do I do now? And that depends on what you are investigating. So it may be a case that you want to share this information with an external body to carry on the investigation. You may want to bring your lawyer into this environment and give them access to, which is something that's perfectly acceptable. Or the other thing you can do is, let's just go to export the results. And again, I've got details on how I can export the results. I think that's the right matter name. I can choose my region, very handy, and I can choose particular format for the messages as they come down, which is always very useful. So start and export, and I'll just go through the process, and it will export that information there. and that will carry on as we see fit. Any export that you do remains in place for a period of 15 days, after which time it's expunged from the system. So use it as you see fit. So that's kind of a matter. What I've done there, I've done some investigation. Clearly, we haven't got much data in this demonstration. We haven't got much data in this demonstration account, but it's given you an idea that I can pull information in. I can do very, very detailed searches to find the information which is most relevant to this particular matter. Then I can take that information and I can export it or bring an external body into this environment to continue with the investigation. And that's one of the great strengths of Vault, that it gives you a great deal of flexibility in terms of how you manage the investigation and what you do with it from here. The last thing I want to show you in Vault itself is the reports. Talked about this before. So this is kind of my audit control. And it gives you the ability to kind of say, okay, what's going on? What's happened? Who's been doing what? And I can say, I can select a start date and an end date. Well, let's say I'll go back to the beginning of last month. And it defaults to today anyway, but I'll put that in here. I can either select certain Vault users or leave that as everybody. And I can say, what do I want to search for? Am I saying what searches have taken place, what exports have been undertaken, what matters have been created, what holds associated with which matters have been put into place? So I can get a lot of details in terms of what information. I can even check who's audited, so what reports have been run, which again is quite interesting. And all I need to do is put the details in, select the appropriate actions, click download, and I won't open that up, but this is one that I prepared earlier. And this is the lovely juicy information that you typically get. So it gives you all the information that you need. You can then investigate this further to understand who's been doing searches, who's been creating matters, who's put information on hold, etc. Just checking that information is being dealt with appropriately. Okay, that's kind of it for Vault itself. Hopefully it's given you an indication of what it can do. It's given you a quick run through. There is quite a lot of information that we have within here, and what you can do is explore that yourself, and we'll go through that in a little bit later. So just going back to the presentation. I don't think they were quite on our side, but they behaved okay. Okay, one thing I do want to point out, and it's an important note, and it's a common question when we're talking about Vault, and that's because there's a clear distinction between an archive solution and a backup solution. So a backup solution, and that's not what Vault is, it allows you to restore en masse whole accounts and large swathes of information and data in cases where the account has been compromised. And that's either typically through malicious intent or accidental action. That's not what Vault is intended for. It doesn't cater for that. It does allow administrators to restore individual items, be they email messages, documents, etc., but not large volumes of information. So the two things, archive and backup, are doing two very, very different functions. And typically, most organizations have both solutions in place. Backup in case of an account being compromised, and they can roll back in time and restore the whole account. And an archive is looking for information, it's retained, and it's got detailed searching functions in the case of creating matters for investigation. So the two are very, very different, and something to bear in mind. So the reasons why Vault is useful for an organization, it kind of varies, and it depends on a number of reasons. It's the industry that you operate in, the territories that you are active in, and your own organizational stance and individual security policies. All these dictate how useful Vault will be to you and how you will use it. There are certain industries where Vault helps fulfill the industry requirements. I'm thinking particularly financial services, government supply, that kind of organization. Healthcare is another one. And also for those operating in the EU, where we have GDPR, who is king amongst all data, you clearly see the benefits that Vault will bring for doing things like data subject access requests, which are actually quite difficult to fulfill without a solution like Vault being in place. So whatever reasons you have for using Vault, you will have the same functionality, and you'll gain the advantage of being able to find, secure, and retain the information based on your policies. The availability of Vault to you as a G Suite user, it depends on which version of G Suite you have. So those of you who are on the business, enterprise, or education versions, well, you've already got Vault in place. You've already got access to that for all your users who have these licenses. If you are on the G Suite Basic plan, then you have the option of adding Vault to some or all of your users. So you could add it to a subset of users if you want to, or you can add it to anybody as an individual license. One important factor in your consideration of how to make use of Vault really is the fact that a deleted G Suite account loses the corresponding Vault data. So you may have all your retention policies created, you've got all your data retained within Vault. If you delete the G Suite account, you delete effectively that Vault data relating to that account. What this does mean is that it makes G Suite and Vault an easy and cost-effective long-term archive for your deleted users. And that may not be for every user, but certainly for users with a perceived higher value of data associated with their account. It's a great way to retain that information on a permanent basis. So just in summary, Google Vault is an excellent tool to help you archive, search, and retain your G Suite data across your whole organization. Our recommendation is that you assess your compliance needs within your organization, and this will give you an idea of the benefits that you'll get from implementing Vault. A trial is available for those of you who do not currently have access to Vault to assist with this investigation. And we here at Refractive have a range of services to help you in this process. Everything from an assessment of your needs, a look at your compliance requirements and matching that to the Vault functionality, and then right through to training and ongoing support, etc. So if there is anything that you feel that we can help with, then feel free to come through to us and we'll happily help. Okay, that has been a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully give you an indication what Vault can do for you. We have a couple of questions. Luke, if a member of staff moved a folder from Team Drive into their own drive, it would transfer ownership. Would the Vault allow you to retrieve and restore it? Yes. So if you're on the business or the enterprise plan, you've got access to Team Drives, then Vault backs up Team Drive doesn't back up, sorry. It archives your Team Drive information. So it accesses in exactly the same way. Now, clearly, Team Drives are not owned by an individual, they're owned by an organization, but the search function, it works in exactly the same manner, whether it's a My Drive folder or whether it's a Team Drive folder. So yes, it would find that. Vault is included within education. Yeah, sorry if I didn't make that clear, Luke. You do get that within education. There are now 2 versions of education. There's a standard version and education enterprise, and clearly you get that within both versions. So if you haven't had a chance to think of a question or it comes to you afterwards, then we'll follow up with some information, some details about Vault, how you can start trials, information about us. Feel free to drop us a response to that email, and we'll happily help you with any questions that you may have in your investigation of Vault. So I thank you for your time.